Okay, welcome to this episode where we are going to talk about another TV show. What? Oh,
I
I thought you... I wasn't even
just doing some
looking at the
hand
camera.
signals,
What are you signaling?
just everything.
Okay,
The
well,
world.
speaking of the world, we are going to talk about
Yeah.
For All Mankind, how America and how America fares basically in this alternate retelling of world history, and it's a very significant event. It's something that I have always been fascinated with, as in the topic of space. Adam, I
Yeah.
didn't know you were as interested.
I like space stuff. I like NASA. I like alternate history stuff. I like all that.
For the viewers, I just need to let you know that I told Adam to watch the first episode without looking at any write-ups, any previews, skip what Apple TV says. So Adam went into this cold. He had my
Mm.
absolute trust. I had his absolute trust. Even his girlfriend said, "What are we watching? What are we watching?" And you were
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised by the opening, weren't you?
Yeah, we didn't even look at the synopsis. I'm surprised I've never heard anything about the show until you told me because it's been out like 4 years or something. So I'm surprised I know nothing about the show going into it. So that's very surprising. We've started watching it, slowly started to realize it's like, okay, it's about the space race. We're sitting in this time zone. Okay, let's see where this goes. As it went on, it clicked. And
Well, that too, I hope.
I, re- I realized that I was like, that's what's going on. That's what's going on. That's why everyone's looking so moody and pissed off. So I was wondering, I was like, why are they really pissed off? It's the Russians that get there first because I think it's like a month before
The
Apollo
Americans.
officially
Yeah.
did actually do it or something. Yeah, something like that. The reveal was really good. I enjoyed that. I like stuff like this though, alternate history sort of things, and then the events and everything surrounding it going forward will be very interesting as we go along in the season. Because
Mm.
I've not watched it. I've not watched the second episode yet or anything, but this was pretty good. Sometimes the pacing felt a little bit slow in places to me anyway.
What like?
Like I wasn't not like not paying attention, but I was after the reveal, it dropped off a little bit, and my attention was like, okay, well, where are we going to go from here? And it sort of dwindled for a little bit. I knew some of the characters, so the introduction of I knew that NASA had Nazi scientists, basically from I don't know a lot of like history and stuff like that, even though they don't want to say it out loud, but he's basically a Nazi scientist.
Yeah, Hail Hydra.
Braun, yeah, yeah, Braun. I knew that name straight away because he was heavily involved in the NASA stuff going forward because of his Operation Paperclip or something.
Yeah.
Uh, from the NASA days. That was all the whole thing. The mission going forward and then officially getting the Apollo mission going, it sort of like took a little bit of, for me, taking a little bit to get to. And then when it got to it, I did enjoy that because then you were kind of thinking, God, is it going to succeed? Because obviously it's alternate history. And so they lost contact for a while. And
A
even
long
then you
while.
think, yeah, you're thinking like, oh shit, has this failed? Have they actually crashed? Is it again? Is this another dud? Because that's another misstep as well. Then so because you didn't know, so you'd be thinking, yeah, they're gonna be successful. It's their turn now to get up there, but it all kind of went wrong, and I enjoyed that little aspect of it, not knowing and sort of being unaware of what's going to happen, the consequences. So I've yet to sort of like continue it on recently, but
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a pilot episode, I quite enjoyed it.
Good. I can't wait to see what you're going to say about future episodes. But with regard to the realism and the fact that it's an alternate history, you picked out Werner von Braun quite rightly.
Mm.
But in reality, he wasn't the head of NASA, which they've kind of put him in, I guess, to simplify some of the mechanisms with simplifying the history. But also the first man on the moon, this Alexei, where is he? What's his name? Alexei Lenyov.
Yeah.
That's actually based on a real person. So
Yeah, was he the first one in space, or was he? I don't know.
Yuri
I can't remember.
Gagarin was the first person in space,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Okay.
So they are taking elements from real life, especially in this first season, where it will sort of establish a grounded reality so that you can say, oh, okay, I can understand the parallels if you're interested in the topic, say. But if you're not
Yeah.
interested, then these names are just as meaningful as, I don't know, some characters from Marvel. So like, who's that guy? Oh, that's just da-da-da. Oh, okay, right, that's his name.
Yeah.
It's like that. But the Apollo 1 disaster still happened because Baldwin talks about it in the first episode and about
Yeah.
how NASA is just playing it safe, and so this is the end result of playing it safe. But importantly,
Okay.
just so you know, Ronald D. Moore, do you know? Does that name ring a bell?
No. No.
Okay, he's a Star Trek writer, so he's like one of the OG writers from TNG who went
Okay.
on to do DS9. He's basically the showrunner. This is his
Okay.
baby. The other one is Brandon Braga, by the way, just as an aside,
Did,
and
did
he's
he
one of the
Battlestar
writers of
Galactica?
Orville. Yeah, he did. Moore did Galactica, and Brandon
Okay.
Braga did the Orville, where he helps why am I saying Seth MacFarlane with the Orville. Holy shit! But he says, and he explains it here, how history is different in the two, in our life and in this life of the TV show. Sergey Korolev was the father of the Soviet space program in our reality. He died during an operation in Moscow in 1966. After that point, their moon program never really pulled it together. Our point of divergence was that Korolev lives, and he made their moon landing happen. So, without going too much into it, this Sergey guy was in charge of the Russian space agency. They were doing great things, like they put Sputnik into space, they put the first man into space. They were doing all these firsts, but as soon as he died, that was it. They just didn't have that passion or didn't have that motivation as in the same way as they do in the TV show. But this Sergey guy is not in the TV show. This is just something that Ron Moore is just sharing as an aside and saying, this is the point of divergence. So it's not really a spoiler because you wouldn't be looking for it.
Okay. That's interesting.
So it's talking about, obviously, the butterfly effect. The death of one person has a massive impact on other things. And you can see that actually with Kennedy, because Kennedy in real life obviously gets assassinated. And he is the one who's like, we've got to get our asses to the moon. And then he dies and everyone's like, okay, we went there. Now what? We don't know what to do. So then they close the space program down. Whereas in this alternate reality, they're like, holy shit, the Russians are winning. We've got to be better.
Yeah, it accelerates. It's quite interesting to think what would happen and how it would shape the world and change things going forward.
Imagine if Kennedy didn't die and we were basically closer in our timeline to what's happening in For Mankind. And then the Russians make a TV show saying, oh, look what would have happened if we got to the moon first. Because some Russian director and some communist supporter, propaganda supporter would be like, yeah, let's make that TV show. Long live Strava Russia.
It's not the first show to do an alternate history thing. I recently watched Man in High Castle, which was basically if the Germans won the war, based on a set of novels as well, books and stuff. So
I've heard about that.
That was pretty good.
Any of the characters stick out for you at the moment? Because just so I can give you an answer, sorry, to that question. For me, they don't, except for Baldwin, but there we are.
Yeah, the lady in the communications, like the command center sort of thing. Yeah, she stands out because obviously, and it's not being like any way against women and stuff like that, but like she was very, I say, pivotal in knowing information, stuff like that, knowing how to work the systems there, which I don't think women had such a high profile role at that point. I don't know.
Women did work for NASA in the 60s, and interestingly, they did a lot of the programming of the computers, and they have got female engineers, but as far as I know, there was never someone in the control room as a woman. So she's entirely for the purpose of this show to represent women. I hope you don't think it's pandering, because the show,
it didn't feel like it was pandering to me. It just felt like she was there, and it was just, I wasn't too aware of who was working for NASA or what people had what people had roles there and stuff like that. Strange. It's a funny time at that point. So a lot of people were doing different things. So it wasn't even sticking out to me in that regard. It was just like she was a sort of a pivotal character in that moment, in those scenes.
There's a lot of real life characters in that first episode as well. Besides the Apollo 13 crew, the guy in charge, I can't remember his name, but the guy in charge of the control room, he's actually still alive. Can't remember his name, but I'm not talking about Deke. But Deke is also a real character, a real person who actually has those problems that are explained in the TV show later on anyway. So they've tried to pull, again, from our reality to sort of establish and ground that TV show. Because for me, actually, season 1 and season 2 are my favorite seasons. And that's not to say that season 3 isn't any good. It is good. But the fact that season 1 is the closest to our reality and history, to me, there's just something that I appreciate with regard to the stakes. The stakes are smaller but pivotal, whereas in later seasons, the stakes get bigger. And I'm invested, but I'm not as interested in large stakes. This goes back to my writing, or the idea of smaller scale stories in general. I just like small stakes. I don't know whether it's just because of my age or what, but
it felt definitely authentic, and the way it's written well, and I like the characters. Like the acting is really good in it. I like the opening scene of all the astronauts getting into their fancy sports cars and driving to the bar. Like that's probably a completely real thing.
Yeah.
They did. They were like like fucking rock stars of their time, basically. And that's the impression you get when they're doing that sort of shit.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Well, you got to tie. I want to tie it in very quickly to that Steven Spielberg movie, Catch Me If You Can, where what's his name's character?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, his character seeks status and validation through becoming a pilot. And as a child, he sees that all the women are focused on that man's status as a pilot and respect. Yeah. So even a pilot had a rock star kind of status when he stood out and wore his uniform. And you imagine NASA scientists and astronauts, holy shit, now everyone's just seeking fame rather than a really good job. I say everyone, but I'm just generalizing. And so no doubt all those guys in the outpost bar are worth something. And even they haven't even got to the moon yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the future. That was what everyone was looking for after like the travesties and stuff of the world wars and stuff like that. And people are looking for like hope and different things in the future and stuff. So that was a big thing back then. That's why the space race was so important. Like, what superpower is going to get there first, and what's going to be, how it's going to shape the way the world's going to be in the future. You know, that's so like a massive time period at that point.
Just for context, because we're roughly the same age, when we look at history and we look at between the 1940s and the 60s, I did anyway. To me, I just thought they were like separate things. But now that I'm 40 and it's 2023, and I look back on 2003. I'm like, there's not really a long stretch of time there. So when you realize when you think about ideologies and people's motivations, World War II, like for me, 2003 is like 2 weeks ago or something. So I'm sure World War II was just around the corner for them.
Yeah, it's still fresh in people's minds. It's crazy, isn't it, really? Because we look at it on a piece of paper and a textbook and think, oh, that's fucking miles apart. But in reality, it wasn't.
And also the 40s, the 50s, the 60s and 70s, when you read them in books, they're sort of represented by those decades. Like, this is what the 60s were like. And you think that the transition, everyone just swapped costumes and everything. Boom, this is now the 60s. But it wasn't like that at all. And it's obviously much grayer and it's more blended together. It's more transitionatory. And yet it seems so far away. But now that I'm older, I understand, life a bit better. And it's actually much closer than what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When you see like old war veterans, all the shit they must have seen, like from that period till like, see if they're still alive now, like 90-odd-year-olds, you're like, right, how much change have they seen in the world compared to then to now? It's mental.
Yeah, for sure.
because we've seen giant changes in like technology and everything from when we used to be at school and that. Like, look at all the advancements that have happened, and that's what's happened. Like, say in this show, like from World War II to like the 60s and stuff, massive changes happened. Most of that comes from like wars and stuff. They say that, don't they? Like, wars breed technological advancents in everything. So yeah, mental.
I remember when I was at school, we had one computer with the internet. And that was, 1993, 1994? So 30 years ago. And now my fucking headphones have the internet built in. Think of the AirPods when they do auto-update. They've got some kind of access to the phone to get the update. So they're linked. Headphones, dude. We'd never have thought headphones would have internet access. The guy that I'm thinking of, by the way, who's a real person who's alive today, is Gene Kranz. So he was the director of the NASA space program. And like I say, I think it's 94 and 95. Some of those bastards are still alive, especially the astronauts. There's a lot of astronauts still left. By the way, Apollo 15, is it the one with Tom Hanks? Apollo 13? Apollo 13.
13?
Yeah.
13, yeah.
That it's not a spoiler, but that never happens in this timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, so they don't dwell on that at all. I think they mention the astronaut, the one who piloted it, but otherwise they've skipped over that because it's not important to the overall story. Where do you think the story will go now that America is sort of like, oh, we're not the best. We're not number one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how's it shaped the world? How's it changed things going forward? I think they're just playing catch up now, so they have to get there now. They're on there anyway, though, from the end of the episode 1. But they have to get the people. They have to get them back now. That's the next thing for me anyway. From watching it, they have to get them back, and then after that, I guess it's basically just playing catch up. And I think the next step will either be they've got to think about further exploration, or even setting up some sort of outpost or thing on Mars, be the first one to sort of, not Mars, but Mars in general, but then obviously set up a base on the moon maybe as well. That's got to be in conversation, I think, going as the season goes on, because what else is there? It's either Mars or set up a base on the moon or something like that. I feel like those are the realistic sort of goals going forward in the seasons, I assume.
Okay, it'd be interesting to. I'm not going to give anything away, but it'd be interesting
Yeah.
to see how you would have predicted things.
Okay. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. I reckon there'll be like a conflict of like the two countries saying, "Well, we were there first. We're going to set up a fucking moon base or whatever," and then US like, "No, we're going to set up a moon base."
Yeah.
It's just who can do it first, maybe, and then because obviously whoever has the moon then could then have a better sort of bouncing off point to get to Mars, say, or whatever. I don't know.
You're right. The TV show, thematically, it's about being first and what it takes
Yeah.
to be first. And so keep that in mind when we're dealing with these characters and their interactions, because season 1 is such a ride. Season 2 or season 2, actually. I'm not going to spoil it, but like I say, things advance because there's time jumps.
Yeah, you said.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm watching season 4 at the moment, and it's now like 20. It's like 2002, 2003,
whoa.
something like that.
Okay.
So you get to see now almost 40 years of this alternate timeline and how things are playing out, not just in the science realm, but also politically,
Culture and political.
culturally as well.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. That's actually really intriguing to think about.
I'll give you one little taste. But do you remember the Apple Newton? It was like their iPad of the 90s. It had a black stylus.
Yes.
Right. And no one really had it. Okay. In this alternate future, in season 3, people have them, but they've got a video camera. But they never actually had one in real life. But Apple, because they helped make the show, they're sort of supposing, oh yeah, this is what a Newton would look like in the 90s, having not won the space race. And so people have got like mobile video conferencing tablets because they're not an iPad, these Newtons, and they're walking around with them. It's like, oh, this is not so cool in the 90s.
Well, yeah, their stuff their direction would change as well, I assume. Well, a lot of things. Everybody's company, culturally, everything would be different. Some from as small, well, I'd say small, but some as culturally changing like that. That event.
Well, it's the butterfly effect again.
Because people don't realize one little thing like that can just change things.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to like find all these little Easter eggs and like, oh, that's different, and whatever. But yeah, the Newton, which I always wanted as a child, the Apple Newton, comes with a video camera and a lot more capabilities. And they've basically brought parts of the iPad 10, 15 years early into that timeline.
That's freaky, man. That's cool.
Yeah, it really is. By the way, Baldwin, who is one of the main characters on the show, he's an amalgamation of a real astronaut who was on Apollo 10, actually did the testing. He's upset, obviously, that he didn't land and they could have done it. And there's that press conference. We coulda, woulda, shoulda kind of thing. Yeah, that was all just part of the testing. Obviously, he says that to the journalist, we could have landed if we took the risks.
Yeah.
But that astronaut who it's based off, Baldwin's based off, is still alive as well.
Oh, yeah. Wonder what they think of this show.
Not only the show, but what about even Project Artemis? Do you know Artemis?
Rings a bell.
Well, they recently launched a rocket around the moon in our real timeline, and then they're sending people around the moon next year, I think, and then they're going to launch a manned mission.
They want to do a manned thing. I heard about that. Definitely.
Right. So they're actually going to land again on the moon for some reason with a black woman, so it's significant.
Do you know what, though? I really hope that they land in the same fucking spot where the actual landing phase is, so they can just debunk all this shit.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, we never did it. And it's like, I hate that shit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it happened. Sorry to like burst your bubble, but it did happen. All these conspiracy theories saying it didn't. Like the amount of money and resources and everything that would take to fake that, it just be, why? What would be the point? Someone would have come out by now. All the personnel involved, everything involved in that. How would it even be possible to fake something? It'd be ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous notion.
I totally agree. And they've still got the moon buggy up there.
Yeah.
So
there's stuff like you can bounce a laser or something, like is there a satellite or a dish or something that's up there where you can reflect a laser off it and something like that. There's all sorts of weird things where you can sort of prove that it's still up there, all the equipment or some shit, if you really look into it.
If you look into it, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not saying aliens are real, but
maybe some of the footage or the photos maybe might have been edited maybe a bit, but I can't see it being completely fake.
That's where probably the naivety of the NASA program came into it, because they edited the photos to maybe make them look clearer. The quality is so good, and then people say, "Oh, it's fake," because they've been edited, so they're fake.
It's like when you take a photo and you make it look a bit prettier by editing all the contrast and the colors and stuff. It's like, there you go, it looks better.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that.
The guy I'm thinking of is Gene Cernan, and he isn't alive. Sorry, he died in 2017. The guy that he's based off. My mistake. But Jim Lovell is the guy in charge of Apollo 13, and he's the one that's still alive. I think, in fact, he's the oldest astronaut left out of like the 8 of them or something. And the last Apollo program mission had Eugene Cernan on it, and that was Apollo 17. And importantly, in the show, the Apollo program goes beyond Apollo 17. When you hear different numbers, I don't know if you do, but if you will, but when I did, I was like, damn, if only the Russians got there first. They only made enough of them, and then they said the rest of them in real life are going to be used for the space station, not the international one, but the, what is it called now, the Skylab space station.
Okay.
So they repurposed the Apollo missions for that, because by the time they got to the moon and they kept going, people lost interest, and they weren't really like, what else can we do on this place? And you know what? That's the sad part, is that people got bored easily. Even in the 70s or late 60s, people got bored of going to the moon. And if people were more interested, then maybe we could have also just stayed up in space.
There's no. I suppose it's all about money. There's no more money to be sort of put into it or made from it. Whereas, like, if they really invested into that, probably would have been money to be made into it, if they really sort of dive more deeper into it.
I think it's more about the pride and the recognition.
Yeah.
And the money, the potential for making money is so long term that the American government under Nixon were just like, we're not prepared to pay for something that you might get a return on when I'm not the president. Mm-hmm. The way we think, governments think in spans of 4 years. The American government thinks in spans of 4 years or potentially 8 years, depending on the president. And then corporations look towards the next quarter. So they want to get an immediate return. And I guess people don't want to rush, but at the same time, they just want the results now.
It's funny that it's now we're going back to it now, so everyone's now more interested in space again. So it's sort of like a U-turn, and everyone's getting more involved. Like I said, people, but like corporations like Elon Musk and like big private companies are getting more into space exploration.
You should look back on this episode when you get into season 3 and 4.
Okay.
But interestingly, when you talk about Musk, we've only got a few minutes left. Do you have anything else to say about the first episode?
No, I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to watching more of it, especially when you mentioned the decades going forward. And I just think that Apple are making they've got a good line of shows, and they've been making a lot of decent programs from what I can see from their lineup, from the app. I've downloaded it, I've subscribed to it, and I quite enjoy most of the content that's on there. From what I've seen so far.
So yeah, we can't say too much. I guess we can reflect on it as the story progresses, because you only get a slight introduction to the characters. It's about the historical event, really, with Neil Armstrong landing on the moon again. The thing you mentioned about Musk, Starship launched like 2 weeks ago, and it was the second launch of Starship, and the first one destroyed the landing, the liftoff part, and the second launch blew up, right? The first stage part blew up. And people have been saying, or not people, but the media have been saying, oh, this is a failure of SpaceX. And obviously they want to attach Musk's name to it because they don't like him. But I read this Ars Technica article, and he was saying that the media don't know what they're talking about, because what SpaceX have done in 10 years, and only with their second Starship booster, is equal to what NASA have been doing since the Apollo program. It's only because SpaceX have said, well, with that that rocket booster, we want that back. So they've made the task harder for themselves. And because that exploded, they're saying that's a failure. But that was actually part of the mission parameters, and it was only a test anyway. And the fact that their process is to just keep building them and just finding out the kinks as quickly as possible. Can't expect them to think like NASA, because NASA don't want to make any mistakes. That's why it takes so fucking long for them to get their finger out their ass to give us a result where we can say, oh, that's all right, I won't watch Kardashians tonight.
He's got the money to just be like, right, do another test, do another test, and that's how can they make progress so quickly, because they can learn from that and go, right, that's what we did wrong there, let's try it again. And until they nail it, and they will, like, that shit is normally pretty good, and it looks impressive when it works. Well, like that rocket going up and then landing is like, I saw that a lot, and I was like, whoa.
Well, I still think that's CGI. It's so weird.
Do you think that's CGI?
No.
It looks weird as fuck.
Yeah, I just still think
it looks, because our eyes aren't used to seeing that shit, because it looks so fucking weird. You're like, Is that real?
Yeah, and they're controlled. That's what computers do. It's just like, okay, in the physical
'cause
space
you're
we
used
can
to seeing
see.
that. You're used to seeing that in sci-fi and stuff like
Right.
that. So it's crazy to see.
Yes, but that Starship launch, NASA wishes they could have done that so probably as quickly as Starship have done. The Ars writer, Ars Technica is really good. They're not sensationalist, but he was pointing out, but on the third mission, which they could launch pretty soon, they could actually start putting a payload on there because that thing that separated, the actual Starship that separated, that worked fine. There's no problem with that. So you could put a payload on there as just extra, as an extra bonus for that test, because you've only got to figure out the Raptor engines on the booster part. Why did they turn off, or why didn't they sync up properly? Or, some element didn't work properly. Boom, they'll have it fixed, and then the next one will go higher. And you only need to look at the compilation videos of the Falcon, where you see them like blow up on the landing pad, then they blow up 10 meters up in the air, then they blow up 100 meters in the air. But every single explosion takes them higher and higher and higher, so you can see this evolution.
The advancements in that entire thing is crazy. You're just looking at the explosions and stuff like that. That's a fail that, but the advancements in technology is like crazy. Like we've got self-driving cars, for fuck's sake. Who'd have thought we would have had those things? And we have like the Starlink satellite system that has been shoved up there. Like, it's crazy. It's mad.
I always keep thinking of who's that ginger comedian who got done for wanking in front of women? Do you remember his name?
Louis C.K.
Yeah, Louis C.K. He had a bit on Conan O'Brien where he said, everything is amazing and no one is happy. Have you seen that bit?
Yeah.
He's like, that guy on the phone, like, It's like, it's going into space. Just fucking give it a minute. It's amazing. The person screaming like, oh, this is bullshit. The internet's not working on the airplane. It's like, dude, it was invented like 10 minutes ago. You just knew about it. Like the sense of ownership that we think we should have over things.
So entitled. Right. So entitled.
Okay, Musk is not exactly a perfect person. No one is, but
oh no, he's mad. but all multi-billionaire people have a bit of crazy. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is.
Well, and in order to be a billionaire, that's the thing. We are looking up. Well, the people who are critical, we are looking up, and we're the crabs pulling the crab that's trying to escape back into the pot. In some ways, I mean, again, he's not perfect. I'm not defending Musk over everything, but for SpaceX, he's doing the right thing. He's doing the best thing possible with what he's got.
At least he's doing it. Like, before him, there was nobody really else doing it. NASA was sort of tinkering away at little things, but they weren't really going out there for things.
Yeah, no one was dicking around as much as he is.
And now because he's doing it, it makes other companies and people go, I want to do it as well. I'm going to do that.
Well, Bezos wants a piece of the pie as well, doesn't he?
Because they know if he gets to like fucking Mars first, or does something there, establishes some sort of thing there, that's money making. You could probably make something from that. Realistically, you could probably get some resources or something is there that can be translated into some sort of cash. It'll be a cash cow.
Oh yeah, for sure. But the way he talks, he's talking about how to set a colony up there. But actually, for me, Mars, I think they're trying too hard for Mars. In real life, I think we should just get to the moon, use the moon as a test bed, get a colony on the moon, work out all the sciences, see if it's self-sufficient, and then go to Mars. Obviously, like, send food and shit and materials ahead in advance and say, right, in 20 years, all that shit will be there waiting for you, right? We've built up a base of operations on the moon. We've ironed out the kinks. For me personally, I don't think Mars should be the discussion. I think the moon should be.
I think the moon should be a jumping off point. Definitely. It should have something established up there. We should have had something established up there long ago, in my opinion.
Yes. Well, season 1 of For Mankind, I'm sure will delight you, Adam, and just make you think, damn it, I wish I lived in that timeline.
Well, that's where all the Nazis are. They went to the moon. They went to all the conspiracy theorists. They've got a base on the moon.
But you know what? I don't think conspiracy theorists will shut up if we actually go to the moon and build a base there. And we point a telescope back at Earth. Everyone's like, no, that's an aberration on the lens. The Earth is flat. You know?
They'd be like, look, this is the wreckage and the debris left over from the first time we came here. They'd be like, no, it's bollocks.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I'm setting the timer up because we've got a minute left. Otherwise, unless we don't need that minute, you want to wrap it up? You want to nip it in the bud?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I think we've covered it all.
I think you have.
One.
For what it is. Yes, and I guess we've shown everyone as well that we are actually genuinely interested in space travel, and I'm sure we'll have other conversations about it in preceding episodes.
Mostly positive as well. We've not been slacking anything off or poking at things.
Right, good. Yeah. It's not loose rants, this one.
Oh, it's been nice. It's been nice to have a positive spin on something because there's so much shit out there at the minute.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, I'll end it and we'll come back. See you in a minute. Thank you for watching, everybody else. Bye.